Commissioner Bell will be calling for a public comment in a few minutes as soon as we get all three commissioners on. If you're going to have a public comment, can you identify yourself now so I can take your name down? Any public comment? Mute yourself and say hi if you want to do public comment. Okay, looks like we've got all three commissioners and no public comment.
Okay, I'm going to start the Port Commission meeting. First of all, I'm going to recess the executive session and move to the public meeting. So the executive session is now recessed. And as far as this meeting goes, we'll start by roll call. Commissioner Briscoe.
Here.
Commissioner Shepard.
Present.
Commissioner Bell, all three present and accounted for. I'd like you to know that for the first time we have almost a full crowd. It feels really good to be back. I even got the gavel. Not sure if I'm going to use it yet, but it feels good to be back home. So we'll start out this meeting with public comment. Anybody wishing to make a comment? We have nobody signed up here in the room. So anybody online that would wish to make a comment, please do so. Just let me know. None? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Anything you'd like to pull or comment on, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, it's already been moved, so I'm good.
Mr. Shepard?
I just had a question on C. I know that the airport does a really great job of keeping its costs down. And when I was reading through that contract, I just wondered if this is something that we could do in-house for a better price or better service, or if this is something that is strategic for us to keep as a contract.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sunil, if you want to address that one.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Sunil Harman, Director of Aviation. Airports of our size typically contract out revenue parking services because the overhead internally is significantly higher than through a contractor. Our typical monthly costs with a contractor are significantly lower. They perform a number of services that would otherwise go under organized labor and would be subject to collective bargaining.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you guys keep a close eye on costs, so I appreciate the ansur. That's it for me.
Hey, Sunil, while we got you, can we put you on the spot and tell us when that Canadian border is going to open back up?
I've heard that Prime Minister Trudeau is now open to discussions about ways to reopen the border. That was 3 days ago. It's my understanding that less than 5% of the Canadian population is vaccinated versus 35% in the US. These are rough numbers. My understanding is that they are very much motivated by a vaccine passport. I suspect that we will see some movement in the next month or so in at least some limited phase reopening utilizing a vaccine passport. At least that's my hope. I think there's a great deal of interest in the Northeast, in Buffalo and border towns in the upper New York area, and Niagara Falls and so on to get this thing done. But the Canadians as a population still resist the reopening. Last survey had 70% of the Canadians not wanting to open the borders yet. At least not in an unfettered way.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Love that shot, Sunil. You look like you're in a balloon hovering over.
I wanted to look like I'm in an airplane cockpit looking out the window, but on final approach there. But yeah, balloon's fine too.
Maybe turn around and fly.
If you are in a cockpit, you're facing the wrong direction.
Well,
Sunil.
I'm doing a missed approach of
Just say it.
16. So. Thank
All
you,
right.
Commissioner.
No, the only thing I want to point out is that we are really, with this consent agenda, working on the waterfront and opening it up, and the activity that's going on down there, the food trucks that are going to be down there, just speaks to the activity that we've generated with that pump track. So with the consent agenda, that's an important part of what's on here. So that being said, we'll go for a vote.
Okay, motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Commissioner Shepard,
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes, unanimous. Presentations, Gina.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Gina Stark, Project Manager for Economic Development Division. And so for this evening for you, I have kind of a pre-approval and a brief presentation for you. So this is an approval for signing of 2 grant contracts when finalized. So this is a draft grant contract for the Strategic Reserve Fund grant. We've had a couple of these brought before you. I believe the last commission, you had one brought before you, and another one a couple of, maybe last year before you. And this one is for $300,000 to the company called Grand West. And as a bit of background, the Strategic Reserve Grant funding is from the governor's office, and it is a discretionary fund that the governor uses when trying to either retract or retain or expansion of businesses into local communities. And in this case, it was for the attraction of, for me, I think a very special company to Whatcom County. And I was really excited, not just because of this company, but this is the largest grant we received, $300,000. I haven't seen one this size before, and I was really excited that we got one at this level. And it's really indicative of this company, Grand West. When I first met John and then later Manuel, they came to me and they said, hey, we would like to come to Whatcom County, and we're looking for an existing building to do a mid-sized bus assembly. And so I started looking around and came up with one of the many challenges we have in Whatcom County. We didn't have anything that fit their need. They were looking for something, around 30,000 square feet for their bus assembly. And I said, guys, I'm struggling. I'm not really finding anything. And I said, would you consider maybe building, maybe? So we started putting our heads together, and sure enough, we found a spot, and they found a spot, and they found something, and they're doing a built-to-suit. And they're finding something not only to fit their current need, but future needs. And they're doing an investment of over $20 million in our community to build, actually to assemble 100% electric bus assembly. And that's exciting. And to create over 20 livable wage jobs in clean energy technology. And they're also using local companies to build this facility. So you see the ripple effect of this company. And so I'm asking for the commission to approve when we have the final contract for our executive director to sign this grant. And also really excited to have this short presentation and to introduce you to John Vigorki. Of course, these two could not have simple last names. They want to challenge me. He's the VP of Corporate Development, and Manuel Archadija, which I know I've slaughtered them, guys. I'm so sorry. And he's the COO. And they have a short presentation to show you, and so that you guys can learn more about this really amazing company that is coming to Whatcom County and are providing such an amazing investment, not only to be a great business for our community, but they are going to be an amazing, amazing partner for our community. So John, Manuel, I'll let you guys kind of take it away because you guys are way more articulate to talk about your amazing company than I am.
Oh, thanks a lot, Gina. Really appreciate all the help that you've provided in your team over the past, I guess it's been since, I guess November last year that we started talking. And it's really a pleasure. I'm so excited to meet the committee and the committee members and the chairman here. And this is really exciting for us as a company. I joined the company 5 years ago, Grand West Transportation. I came on as a director and then came full time. We were pretty small back then, but we've had a bit of growth and really done pretty well in Canada. And now we're excited to really focus on the US. I myself, I'm a dual citizen. I'm from California. I was listening to Sunil earlier. I really want this border to be open. I'm in quarantine right now because I came across a week ago. So maybe I'll just go through a quick presentation here. I won't spend too much time, just so you get a bit of background on our company here. Let's see here.
Are you based in Vancouver?
Actually the company's based in Aldergrove, so Langley.
Yeah.
And I live in White Rock, so I can see the border from my house. And so the product or the facility is going to be built in Ferndale. Let's see here. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Great. So Grand West Transportation, it's a pleasure to present to you here today. So kind of a corporate overview. We basically formed a company in 2008. We make a mid-size bus. We make electric, CNG. We're going to be making some gas, but really focusing on the clean energy space. And that's really what we've been focusing on as our electric vehicles here recently. We're an established brand. We've been around for since 2008. We've got about 90% of the market share for our heavy-duty mid-size bus in Canada. So we've done really well in Canada. We're in most of the provinces across the country up here. We do have about, I think, 150 buses around the U.S., but really 90% of our sales or 80% of the sales have been in Canada, and really we'd like to focus more on the U.S. We've remained pretty capital light and just kind of focused on using some of our contract manufacturing to really get us to where we are today. But it became apparent to be successful on especially the transportation and the FTA funding. We need to have our own facility, and that's what's really brought us to the state of Washington to make our own manufacturing plant and start building our own buses from basically start to finish, and a lot of the assembly. We've got decent revenues for a small company. I mean, we've got 50 employees. We just announced our first quarter. This year was 27 million in sales. We delivered 67 buses, most of those to the U.S. So for us, we'll probably do 55 million in revenue this year. That's Canadian dollars. So for a small company, we're doing pretty well. But also we feel like we're at the very beginning of stages of our growth. The Vicinity Lightning electric vehicle, we've done something really unique here. Basically, we've taken instead of doing what everybody else is doing, it's taking like a standard bus and just retrofitting it with some bigger electric charging and drivetrain. We've designed from the ground up, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But we're really excited about it. I think you've all probably heard about the electric vehicle incentives and tailwinds. I mean, Manuel could talk more about this, but when the government finally gets behind clean tech, now it can actually happen, because until you get that push, you've seen this probably over and over, the drive to become more sustainable. But until the incentives and kind of the legislation's in place, it's hard to really make that move. And so we're definitely seeing that now. And for a small company, we're doing pretty well, strong balance sheet. again, we've had our biggest quarter ever, we announced yesterday. We're going into a significant addressable market, the market we're selling in with our mid-size buses. So kind of when you think about what we do, there's about 25,000 vehicles per year sold in North America, which would include Canada and the US. And that's really what we're focusing on. So, when we talk about a quarter doing 67 of our vehicles, there's a significant amount of growth that we can look forward to. And that's all gonna, most of that's gonna come out of that facility there. What we almost call our campus. It's a small campus, but we have some plans to expand that as we go. So if you look at our product overview, we traditionally started out in 2008. We partnered with BC Transit. Manuel was the CEO of BC Transit at that time, so he knows our company and buses quite well. But we designed a heavy-duty mid-size bus, and this was something that none of the other the bus manufacturers were doing. You had the cutaway buses, which are the kind of that GM or Ford, body on chassis style. And so that was, I think, what Manuel was dealing with, or a lot of these groups are dealing with, where they fall apart after 5 years. They're quite expensive to run. Whereas the 40-foot buses, at the time, the other, and still the larger manufacturers would just cut out 5 or 10 feet out of it and say, well, here's your mid-sized bus. But still, it had, the big heavy engines and wasn't really designed to go into the communities. So that's where we designed the vicinity along with BC Transit in mind, and came out with a new bus. It's really the only one in the market that's really designed for that 30 to 35 foot range. We're looking at doing a heavy duty midsize as well in the electric vehicle space. We've kind of turned it to bolt. We haven't really started in earnest right now because we're so focused on the medium duty, the Vicinity Lightning, which I mentioned. So that's our 28-foot electric bus. We've announced that in, I think it was the end of the year here in January. And we've got our first demonstration models coming here in June, July. And we've received our first orders for that. We're building 25 currently. And we'll be putting that through the testing in Pennsylvania to meet the US Buy America requirements. And then we've also got a light duty product. It's 26 or 28 foot that we want to put a gas engine in, just because we want to be able to provide all solutions. We currently, do the heavy duty and diesel and CNG. And, just as a lot of these municipalities are switching over to electric vehicles, not all of them can sustain a electric vehicle infrastructure yet. So if they can make use of a CNG, we'll want to be able to provide it. Or if we have to give them a diesel bus and then switch it out in the future, I think we want to be flexible to be able to do that. A little bit more on the Lightning EV. So we partnered with BMW for the batteries, which they've been making these batteries for about 10 years. So they're very safe. They're also 400 volts. So you can basically plug them in and charge them with any infrastructure in place already. So even at your house, if you had a 240 volt charging station, kind of what you use for your Tesla with onboard charging, that's what we've designed to go after. We've got just like you're charging for your Tesla, it's got the plug on the bus. So it's really easy to plug and play. We've used like automotive parts. It's proven. So these are high volume manufacturing pieces and parts. So it's basically brought our cost of ownership down quite a bit. Our buses are coming in around that $300,000 to $350,000 US range. And that's really kind of coming in about half of what the competitors are doing. We're also using automotive engines, which these are running at a higher RPM rate. So they're more efficient than some of the heavier models. We also engineered the bus to put the batteries on the floor, so it's a much more stable vehicle. A lot of the competitors are putting their their batteries on the roof, which you can imagine creates a bit of top heaviness. There's a few more benefits around it. There's room for four wheelchairs on there. You know, I can send this out to everybody so you can see it, but simplified maintenance. You can carry quite a few people in it. Unlike the cutaway buses, there's standing room and some flexibility with how you want to lay out the floor plan. And this is where we get really excited. You know, the facility we're looking at in Washington, the state of Washington, there in Ferndale. We've identified about 4 acres. We finalized the design. We're super excited to apply for the finalized permits to get going on this. And you know, we're going to be assembling our Buy America buses. We're going to be doing all kinds of work out of the state there. So if you look at where our facility is and our headquarters in Canada, it's in Aldergrove. This is, you know, about 30 miles away. So we'll be able to get there and basically start up operations quite well, which we're really excited about. I mentioned our financials. For a small company, we're real excited. You know, our first quarter, that's our biggest quarter we've ever had. We did about 27 million in revenue and 2 million of net income. So it's we're excited to bring this momentum to the U.S. We're also working on our NASDAQ listing as well. And then I talk about the management board here. You know, we've got Will, our CEO, which I'm looking forward to introducing you over time as we get closer to some ribbon cutting and stuff like that. Manuel's here with me today, just a fantastic member of our team. He joined a few months ago. And as I mentioned, he was with BC Transit and knows us quite well. And he's just got a great skill set for operations. We've got a great CFO and some great directors as well. And with that, I will end this and see if I can come back here. I hope, did everybody get that?
Yeah, I got it fine. John.
Okay, good. Is there any questions I can answer or?
Wow. This
Like
is
I said, commissioners, they're pretty amazing. That was just the tip of the iceberg.
that's a big deal. By the way, you're only 30 minutes and 14 days away from us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know it. And I got my my vaccination when I was down in California. So when I came across, you know, coming back here, and they said that doesn't count yet. And I said, okay. So anyway, well, we'll get there.
Commissioner Shepard, do you have anything?
Very exciting. Welcome. Thanks for investing in our community. It's a big deal. And Gina and your team, they're great to work with. We have got a really great economic development team to help. That's what they're here for, is making these connections. They're kind of those they help catch the ball and then deliver it. And they've really come through here with support from the state and the ability to match our team's talent with a great company. So I'm thrilled to see this. I was just walking down the street and one of these, WTA had an electric bus that almost snuck by me. It was so quiet. I turned around, all of a sudden there was this fully electric bus. I had never seen one here in town before, but I saw the first one. So it's exciting to see that this is the type of technology and the type of infrastructure that we're going to be seeing more of, and really thrilled that we're going to be able to count your business as one of our other great local businesses.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe, you have anything?
Yeah, boy, this is great. This is great. I'm glad to see a new company coming to Whatcom County. We want to welcome you with open arms, and Gina and her team, you guys are great. You're doing a heck of a job. You know, 10 years ago at the Port of Bellingham, we were still throwing the economic development ball around the room, trying to figure out what to do with it. Don and Gina have come in and they're playing ball. And I'm glad to see that your company stepped up to do business in Whatcom County. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Manuel, I don't want to ignore you. Did he just, I mean, he's already sealed the deal, so there's really nothing you can add, but we'd like to hear from you if you've got anything to say. Way to be a closer.
Oh, we're excited to be part of the community. That's one of the things we've really looked at when we looked around for properties and locations. It just made complete sense. Working with Gina has been a real treat. She's been really supportive and trying to help us as we're not only just identifying, potential properties, but also potential partners and other partners in the community for us to work with, and that's been outstanding. And we look forward to a long-term relationship. As we've said, we're not, we don't see ourselves as competing with the big bus guys, but we see ourselves as competing in a market that we think will meet a lot of communities' needs, and not only in Canada, but in the US. And we look forward to seeing our buses in Whatcom County as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to see a Bolt bus with really a Bolt bus, right? That'd be a cool thing. Yeah. All right, I've got nothing more to add. Commissioner Briscoe?
Is
We
there
need
an
to read the
action item
motion.
associated with this, or?
We're going to get the action item later.
Commission, I think we're going to ask you to approve this. This is a little different than we normally do a grant because we usually have the grant when we get it approved. In this case, the timing window is such that we're asking you to authorize me to accept the grant once it's approved. So if one of you can make that motion, authorize the executive director, accept the SRF grant when it's approved.
I make a motion that the commission authorize to accept the SRF grant when it's approved by our director, Rob Fix.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Commissioner Briscoe?
Aye.
Shepard?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell is a yes as well. Okay, gentlemen, get ready for the July 4th celebration. We're going to put on a show for you guys over at White Rock. Get ready.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
Thank you, commissioners.
We're going to have to
Thank
buy
you,
higher
Gina.
fireworks if that's the case. They're going to have to give a little.
All right, the first action item?
There's only one, right?
Yeah, but it's a long one.
Motion by commission to approve the following documents. Consent to assignment of lease for change of ownership from Patsy A. Radifich, Kenneth J. Quinn, and Alan R. Shabia, a Washington Partnership DBA Harbor Enterprises to AMBK Waterfront LLC, and new harbor lease between the Port of Bellingham and AMBK Waterfront LLC. Motion by the commission to authorize the executive director to execute any and all other documents necessary for this transaction. Motion by the commission to authorize the executive director to execute a modification of lease between the Port of Bellingham and AMBK Waterfront LLC no later than 30 days after the commencement date, closing date of the purchase and sale agreement, consistent with the consent to assignment of the new harbor land lease, to specify the precise commencement date and term date of the initial 50-year lease term.
So that's a mouthful, commissioners, and Judy Harvey is here to explain it all to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Judy Harvey, Senior Property Manager, Real Estate Division. The Real Estate Division is very pleased to bring this transaction forward to the Commission. It was negotiated under the direction of Shirley McPherron, our Director of Real Estate, prior to her well-deserved retirement. Harbor Enterprises owns the building located at the corner of Bellwether Way and Roeder Avenue. Harbor Enterprises sold its interest under the lease to Jeff Kochman of AMBK Waterfront, subject to Commission approval. The new lease with AMBK Waterfront requires redevelopment and substantial rehabilitation of the exterior of the existing ground floor for commercial uses. The marine trades requirement requires at least 1/4 of the total square footage of the building ground floor to be used or subleased to marine trade businesses. AMBK Waterfront is also required to redevelop the second floor for residential dwelling units and may add a third floor for residential if feasible. If AMBK Waterfront fails to substantially complete its tenant improvements within 5 years from the commencement date of the lease term is automatically reduced from 50 years to 10 years, and the 3 at 10-year renewal periods will be null and void. The new lease with AMBK Waterfront contains a residential rental agreement, release indemnification, and hold harmless agreement, which requires all residential tenants to release, indemnify, and hold harmless the port, AMBK Waterfront, neighboring port tenants, and future neighboring tenants from the working waterfront commercial and industrial activities. Harbor Enterprises tenant-owned building has been for sale for about 2.5 years. And during this time, real estate has negotiated several potential deals. Real estate believes this transaction with Jeff Kochman of AMBK Waterfront is the highest and best use for the corner of Bellwether Way and Roeder Avenue. Real estate recommends approval of this transaction. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Can I start with you, Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, I just, I want things on the record here. I know we had this on the consent agenda, but so the reason, Judy, for the 50, I think I understand, but for the 50-year lease is for financing purposes generally. That's why we go out that far with the lease?
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure that that was on the record and people knew why we were going out that far with lease. And I was glad to see that yourself and Shirley put in some language that protects us from that long-term lease if the person doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Thank you for that. And have we been told what Jeff intends to do with the building?
The ground floor will be for commercial uses, so he's got to substantially renovate that. 25% of the footprint of the building must be marine trades. Other than the 25% Marines trade requirement, he's allowed to sublease to any tenants, provided, of course, that it meets the zoning permitted uses.
And can we go up there? Can he go higher with the building?
Commissioner, yeah, sorry, Judy, I'm going to jump in here, but yeah, he's going to planning on adding a story on top of the building, and I believe he's planning on putting residential in that story. One of the things we've talked to him about is what we call our no whiner clause. It essentially, the buyer or the renter of a unit acknowledges that they're in an industrial area and there may be sounds and smells that are conducive to an industrial area, not to a residential area.
Thank you for that, Rob. That's what I was after, so that we had that on the record and everybody understood, because I'm sure we'll probably get some questions. So, Judy, thank you very much. Thanks, Rob. That's all I have. Commissioner Bell.
Commissioner Shepard?
Well, I'm glad to see this moving forward. We've been trying to get this project off the ground and get this into a more productive use. It's a strategic corner, and so it's an important one for us to see moving forward, and I'm glad that we've got a viable proposal here. That's all the comments I have at this time. I've already discussed all my other questions with staff, and I'm comfortable moving forward.
Thank you, and I'm comfortable as well, and I'm particularly happy to see, because I think what he's got planned for this building ties the Bellwether Drive to the rest of the city. It's consistent with what we have going on down on Bellwether Way and what we have coming around the corner, and he has the property next to it, so it's really gonna tie in nicely. I think this is an amazing fit, and I do think the residential is consistent because we do have a little bit more down the road as long as they understand what they're buying when they get in there. So I'm in favor, and rather than make Carey read this again, are you guys okay if we just approve action item A on our agenda? Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
I was hoping Carey would not have to read that again. It's a long one. Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. All in favor? Commissioner Briscoe?
Aye.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is also a yes. All right,
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, and we do wish to see you a little bit more often, Judy. Long time no see. All right, we'll move on to other business. I think Mr. Hogan has got a presentation first.
Hopefully I don't shut down the whole Zoom meeting while I'm pulling up my presentation here. Let's see. How does that look? We good? Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Hogan, Public Affairs Administrator. Great to see you guys in person. It's been a long winter. I personally have been locked in my house with 4 children for a lot of the pandemic, so if anybody wants to throw things at me, it'll be kind of par for the course. Yeah, we're bringing forward some grant information that has a specific timing issue that we need to get back to the granting agency if we want to accept the grant. It's a grant through the Washington Recreation and RCO office. This is a biennial state grant program, and it provides significant dollars for boating infrastructure, parks, trails, salmon recovery. They've given over $2 billion since 1964. We've received a lot of grants through this program through the Port of Bellingham. And this year we applied for the Fairhaven Small Watercraft Launch Program. This was about a $1.9 million program, and we applied for 2 $500,000 grants. And we noted these in our budget. Good news, bad news, we tentatively received one of the grants and through the ALEA program, and then we didn't get one of the grants through the WWRP program. Kudos to our project team that was working on this. These grants, I think each grant has about a 100-page grant manual. They require technical evaluations. There's 85 different scoring criteria. We applied for the same project through the 2 grant programs. We were ranked 4th in both programs out of 30 plus projects in each program. We didn't get the WWRP because there's a statute that favors applications that have an acquisition component, acquiring property. So unfortunately we did not get that, but we did get the ALEA. So a big thanks to Brady, Scott on our team, Dave Warder, and Greg Nickel. And let's see. And also a big thank you to the people. We received a number of letters of support through the program and had tremendous community support. This is a project that a lot of folks feel passionate about in the paddling community, and a few folks are here today in person to speak on behalf of the project, and then I think there's a few on our Zoom that want to speak about the benefits of the project. Just to refresh your minds, this is the project location at the existing Fairhaven boat launch. And while Whatcom County has over 130 miles of marine shoreline, there's actually very few points for public access. There's 14 marine access points. This is the Whatcom Water Trail that was developed with the port in collaboration with Recreation Northwest and other groups. And of these 14 access points, these include like the port's boat launches. So there's motorized use. Some of them have limited parking, no restrooms. There's none with ADA access, and these access points weren't really designed for small watercraft. So there is a significant need for this type of amenity. One of the most popular of these locations is at the existing Fairhaven boat launch. As you can see in this picture, though, it is a popular spot and it gets crowded. The Community Boating Center estimates there's about 9,000 launches per year. You can see the high freeboard, which doesn't lend itself well for folks in kayaks or the small boats when they're getting down to launch, and especially the ADA access. So this is the proposed location adjacent to that motorized boat launch. It's an opportunity to address a safety concern with a remnant structure that exists there, improve the access. It's also close to the Padden Creek Estuary, so part of the proposal includes a small pocket beach, so an opportunity to restore estuary habitat. This is the project location. Again, it includes a small pocket beach, a non-motorized dock, which will actually provide some wave attenuation to give benefit to the motorized launch, and then a low freeboard kayak dock, which will assist with, as I mentioned, ADA access and just a really good amenity for small boaters. I'd also like to mention the economic benefits associated with the project. You know, we have a number of events, ski to sea and different events throughout the summer that bring in tourist dollars. There's a number of retail folks that sell a bunch of kayaks and other small boats. And then there's also, you know, tourism associated and a number of boat manufacturers, small boat manufacturers that have roots in Whatcom County, including Ocean Kayak and others. So, as I mentioned, in our port budget, we anticipated both the RCO grant and the WWRP grant. If the commission wants to move forward with the project without the WWRP grant, it would require about a $1.391 million port contribution to implement the project. And I would like to invite some folks from the small watercraft community to speak. We'll start with the folks that are here. Deb, would you like to, or Brian, would you like to come up and address the commission?
Right here?
Yeah.
All right. Hey folks, thanks for taking the time to hear my testimony today. So I've been the director of the Community Boating Center just for about a year now. But I've been in the water sports industry for the past decade. I've worked at a lot of organizations around the world and have seen how being on the water changes people's lives. The last 4 or 5 years before I came to Bellingham, I was working in Seattle, building and directing programs that served adaptive water sports to communities with physical, emotional, and cognitive disabilities. Basically, I think the community is pretty lucky to have an organization like ours that can serve accessible programs to people regardless of their income or ability level. And just in the last year, of course, it's been a challenging one, but we've been able to build partnerships with area schools, with housing projects, the Bellingham Vet Center, and at this point, I see an incredible potential to evolve and grow our service to the community if given the right tools. And this spring, we're seeing an unprecedented demand for our services. Even in the early season programs, we're coming up against some facility constraints. And frankly, I don't see us being able to evolve and grow without seeing a dock or a project like this implemented. Well, of course, access to the water is a core tenet of our mission. Our ability to safely meet these demands is limited currently by our physical access to the water. Operating off a busy boat ramp dock and at a rocky beach has its challenges. And on a given day, our staff have to navigate their boats and their students across busy lanes of launch traffic and are at times confronted and even threatened by combative boat ramp users just trying to get their kids on the water. This last Saturday, a powerboat wake capsized our historical replica of the Dirty Dan Harris rowboat, causing injury to both the participant and the boat. We need a safe space to deliver our programs, and we need the right tools to expand our services. So if you value the work that we do, I hope that you'll support this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Greeting alls. It's been a while since I've seen you, but thanks for the opportunity and thanks for the support. You know, the Community Boating Center, this is our 15th season.
Can we get your name? And
Oh, excuse me, Deborah Dempsey. I'm one of the founders and presently serve the board of directors as treasurer.
you're
Thank
from
you.
Bellingham?
Yes. And not until '05, though, Commissioner Bell. Yeah, making up for it. But the overcrowding issue has become acute. If you go down there to launch, especially during crab season, it's combat launching. And as far as the boat wake is concerned, the dock proposal is also to serve as a floating breakwater. It will work much better than the 2 logs that are tied up between the pilings right now. And I think it will actually help to buffer the port stock as well. So that, and Brian is spot on with the demand that has happened this year. This newfound appreciation for outdoor recreation that happened last year is off the charts. Our youth camps are selling out like in 3 days. The after-school programs that have been added, the Sea Squirts class that was added for the 5 to 7-year-olds, this is a first. The adult classes, the bioluminescence paddles sell out. Quite frankly, not are we overcrowded on the water, but we're getting overcrowded shoreside as well. But of course, this speaks to the dock. With this overcrowding, the safety issues are magnified. A separate dock will absolutely mitigate a great deal of this. And a big component which Mike spoke to is the access for all abilities, which I'd like to ask Mike Passo to tune in and speak to. Thanks very much for the consideration.
Great, thanks, Deborah. And we have, a couple folks that aren't here in person. Mike Passo, let me just see if I can. Rob, do I need to unmute anything? He can unmute himself. Okay, yeah, Mike, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for giving me a moment to talk. Mike Passo, I live in Bellingham, Washington. I'm the executive director of American Trails, and I used to own a sea kayak tour company called the Lock Expeditions that operated out of Bellingham for about 12 years. I also use a wheelchair, and I want to speak to you just kind of on behalf of folks with disabilities in our community. Really, there is no accessible water access point north of Seattle currently that I know of, at least. There may be some that sneak in there, but in my experience, they're very hard to come by, and this area is very, very lacking in that. And I think this dock would would be a boon to the northern reaches of the Salish Sea here. There are so many opportunities, and Bellingham actually, as a whole, has a really dispersed group of people with disabilities. There are a lot of us here, but there's no gathering point. There's no program that everybody can rally around. The city of Bellingham has a few programs that people take part in, but I think this could be something that the entire disability community of northern Washington could really rally around, find great solace in, especially in this time of COVID-19, where people are turning to trails and to water trails and to recreation on the water to save their souls, and nobody more so, I think, than people with disabilities. And it would sure be, I would really hope you'd consider doing something that could really help that community out immensely. And the Community Boating Center I'm on the board of at the moment, and they're well positioned to really take up that mantle, and they're eager. Brian is eager to make some really great programming that could be really focused on this excellent launch opportunity. So I hope you'll consider it, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate your comments. Next, we have Kelly Abbott, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Kelly Abbott. I am the head coach of the Bellingham Bay Outrigger Paddlers. We are a 501c3, been in Bellingham, and we launch out of the CBC for the last 10 years. We have about 90 club members right now, a pretty large recreational paddle group. We paddle traditional Hawaiian outrigger canoes that are 6-man. We also have a competitive program and a youth program for training youth how to paddle and learning that experience. We participate in a lot of fundraisers, including the Paddle for Food, which is a fundraiser for our local food bank, and our growing community of paddlers, as this has been said already, and I will just echo those sentiments. I would say there are about 150 small boat, surf ski, single outrigger, double outrigger in our community right now. Most of them cannot or do not launch at the CBC because the conditions aren't safe and it's concrete and it's just not friendly for such fragile canoes. So I'm just here to share our support for the infrastructure expansion to better provide safe access for our non-motorized watercraft in our community, and our children that launch out of there with these, 400-pound outrigger canoes, and the safety issues for sure that are present. We use that space 8 months out of the year. The docks are sometimes in and sometimes not in yet, so there's definitely hazards to launching in that location, and we would support this infrastructure expansion. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. And one more person, Nicole Oliver, City Parks Director. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, it's so crazy to see you having a live meeting. I'm jealous. Hi, Nicole Oliver. I'm the City of Bellingham Park Director. We wrote a letter in support of this grant. This is a wonderful facility, and it could get so much better with this improvement. You're investing in public access, equity, access to the water for hand-launched boats, safety, all those types of things are investments in the future and better improvements and better access to recreation for our community. I really support you moving forward with this grant. We didn't get one of our grants either, so don't feel bad. It was a competitive grant process this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. With that, I will, if the commission, I'll turn it over for commission discussion. If the commission wants us to proceed and with the project, we have some proposed language which would allow us to amend our budget and meet the RCO grant requirements. If the commission wants us to put it on pause and look for more grants to support it, we're happy to follow commission direction. So turn it over for discussion and questions.
So let me first ask if there's anybody else in the public that would like to speak to this issue before we go to commission discussion. Is there anyone else that wants to say something? Okay. Hearing none. Commissioner Shepard?
Sure. For me, this issue goes back to, I think, 2018 when Mike and Rob and I went and met with Community Boating Center staff, and we walked the site. We looked at the facility needs. We heard about, even then, the high demand that the CBC was experiencing, the crowding issues, and what were the suite of capital improvement needs that were on the table. And so I've really appreciated staff taking this under their wing and working as a good partner to find a solution here, and also to find some money. $500,000 goes a long way. I know we had hoped for more, but it is, these grants are extremely competitive, and we knew that going into it. For me, one of the reasons I really like this idea is what a couple people mentioned was equity. And one of the things we know about the boating industry for recreation is it can be an exclusive experience because oftentimes, to have a boat and to be able to enjoy the water has a financial barrier. And when we open up more opportunities that have low financial barriers, like what the Community Boating Center is doing, it broadens that access to people with a variety of incomes and a variety of abilities, like Mr. Pasco so eloquently observed. And I think it's really central to what we do here as a public agency is to ensure that equity is baked into our organization and how we operate in the community. So I would really like to see us find a way to move this forward and to find the money to make this happen. It's a project we've put a bunch of time into already. It looks like a really good plan. It meets a clear need we have in our community. I think it will pay off for years and years to come if we make this kind of investment. I also want to give a shout out to Gina and her hard work to get that wonderful map that Mike highlighted. We worked to get that map really for just this purpose, was so that we had an inventory of the resources that we have in our community. And then we can start to the map was always designed as this first step. First, we look at the inventory to see what's there, and then that allows us to make decisions on what are the needs for improvement, the needs for acquisition, the needs for upgrades, and this is really just what I think the stakeholders hoped that map would generate in terms of conversation. So I'd really like to see us, I don't know if Rob wants to speak to how we would find the money to do this, but I would really like to see us find a way to make this happen.
So Commissioner, this is another one of those that there's a bit of a technicality here that's requiring your approval of the budget now. I don't expect the cash to go out the door for another 2 years. It takes us a while to permit these in-water things. I mean, at the most, it's going to go out a year from now, year and a half. So I'm very comfortable with your approving this now, not having it been in the cash flow previously, because we will work it in the cash flow in the next budget cycle so that it works by the time we spend the money, if that makes sense.
That does. You brought up permit. What's the outlook on permitting a project like this? There's some questions about overwater coverage. There's some questions about a number of things that come up with this.
Good question, Commissioner. So we've identified a number of derelict structures both on the site and in the region that could be potential mitigation. Anytime you're trying to permit new structures in Puget Sound and Bellingham Bay, though, it's a challenge. So we will do our best, but it's tough to predict. It's having experience working with the different federal agencies and stakeholders involved. We anticipate, I think we're anticipating 2023, kind of fall 2023, but depending on permitting.
Well, my final comment is on the list of supporters. I didn't see the Lummi Nation as a supporter so far, and just to encourage you to work with our team who has good relationships with the tribe. They're going to be an essential stakeholder in the permitting process as we move forward. And so for you to have a relationship there and to have buy-in and support from the tribe is going to be important. And I think there are elements that the tribe will find meet some of their strategic needs as well about access and use of traditional territories. So, my suggestion.
Mr. Hogan, would you change the screen back to the Zoom view? Just something about that 1,3. Thanks. Commissioner Briscoe?
I thought I was all done. I wasn't on the screen anymore. 2016, when I became a commissioner, I forget, but I think that was a correct year. I met with community voting center folks, and we moved forward with some things. The port moved forward with some things, helping them. And this was certainly discussed then. I wish this was done now. Monetary constraints for the port at this time are there's a lot. We've got a lot to do. We've got lots of things to fix, rebuild and so on and so forth, and new projects. And so money's always an issue. But as Rob said, it sounds like this is a couple of years out from happening. We can work it into the budget. is kind of a no-brainer for me. I mean, I was raised on the water. I know how important it is to some kids to be on the water, and I know how important it is to some kids who've never been in the water or to the water or on the water. Once they get there, it's pretty exciting, and it can change a person's life. I'm sorry to hear from the disabled community that we don't have better access to the water than we do. I thought the state and county had more access for those people to the water. So hopefully we can work this in to take care of some of that, and maybe we can add more. A few questions, Mike, if you could go back to the picture of the dock just for a moment, please. Can you do that?
Yeah, Commissioner, 1 second. Oop. Yeah, this one?
Yes. So I guess a question of design, can this be designed so it can be left year round or not? Or is this going to be a wintertime out thing like the rest of them?
I believe this is a year-round facility. We actually, the non-motorized dock would be fixed in place, and then the low freeboard kayak dock, I believe it's actually, we were looking at a different type of anchoring that's more environmentally friendly. It kind of has these helical screw anchors that will go on cables. So I believe the non-motorized dock gives it that wave protection that allows it to be in year-round. A little bit of this is, as we move through the design process, I'm sure things will change and we'll learn more, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, well, my concern was with the northeasters we get over there, putting in that pocket beach and not having protection for the pocket beach that's going to go away. So, do you know, is this going to be enough low freeboard dock for the disabled folks to get into their watercraft as well? Is it going to be big enough?
Yeah, it's a really cool design. It's specifically made that it has handbars that allow you to lower yourself down, and then rollers that you can wheel your kayak in. So it's not something we're inventing. It's an off-the-shelf product that's specifically designed for that.
Okay, very good. Thanks. That's just some questions that kind of ran through my head while folks were talking there.
And then, the Pocket Beach, good question on the Pocket Beach. We're fortunate to have Jim Johannesson, who's on the board for the Community Boating Center, and Jim's a local guy and also, has designed, he's one of the leading soft bank designers within Puget Sound and has done a bunch of these projects throughout Puget Sound. So he'll continue to be on the project team and help us, do what we can. I understand that area is subject to high wave energy, so there are limitations, but we'll do what we can.
Thanks, Mike. Rob, on the permit side of things, is there any way to scurry this along?
Yeah, unfortunately, Commissioner, probably not. This is going to fall under the new NIMS rules of requiring mitigation for even existing infrastructure replacement and repair. They've really clamped down on those rules, and it used to be just for new development, new overwater coverage, but now it's for existing coverage. And I believe we have a little additional coverage here too. So this one's gonna be a little more complicated, and I don't think scurrying it along, as much as I'd like to hurry it up, it's out of our hands. It's gonna be the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's gonna be NIMS. Commissioner Shepard brought up a very good point, though. If we have the illumination on board, that's certainly going to help. That one can take a while to get through the permitting process, so if they're on board up front, and we'll make sure we address this with them sooner than later, that could help.
Thanks. That's the information I wanted to hear so that the folks can go back and look at that and understand why it's not happening as fast as port staff and commissioners would like it to happen. It's kind of out of our hands to a certain extent. Mike, one more time, could you go back to that picture of the CBC Boating Center there, the overall one there?
Absolutely.
Because in the, I've forgotten the young lady's name that was speaking there, but
Deborah Dempsey?
yes, we have any more ground there that can help this grow at all? We got. I mean, I know we got the Coast Guard folks there.
Yeah, unfortunately they're socked in by the need to bring in bigger trucks into that warehouse there, and the water on one side, the tracks on another, and the boat launch on the third. So we've looked at this before with them. We're going to try and get a restroom solution in there for them. I believe it's going to be a trailer solution, something that we have to pump out and put fresh water in, just because of the lack of sewer in that area and the difficulties of hooking up to sewer with those types of facilities. But we're well aware of the problem. We're committed to working with them to try and maximize their space and make it easy for them to do business.
Thanks on that, Rob. Appreciate it. Well, as everybody's heard, we do have some big hurdles to get over, and it takes time, unfortunately. I certainly wish this was something we could, here at the port, have in-house tomorrow for kids to start using it as long as with everybody else. But we have some constraints, so we'll do our best to get through them. And I'm all for this. So I guess we're going to take a vote on something here. Do we need to make a motion, Commissioner Bell?
Well, we first have to hear from Commissioner Bell, Commissioner
Okay.
Briscoe.
Well, but do we have to make a motion after you're through speaking? Is that how we have to do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we should make a motion when we're done.
Okay,
Do
very
you
good.
want to
Thank you.
do you want to formulate that?
Yeah, I have some proposed language following the commission discussion that would allow us to meet those RCO grant requirements.
Well, aren't you presumptuous?
Just prepared.
So, two things. Is the old dock going to go away completely? Is it going to be demolished in this program? I mean, I see a huge liability issue with that dock remaining.
Yes.
So
yeah.
the idea is to take it away.
Yep, that would be part of the mitigation for the project.
And then what do we do for entertainment when we can no longer go down there and watch the struggle that goes on? That is cheap entertainment. It happens right after. Seriously. So you're going to take away a source of... Okay. It's a trade-off. Yeah, so the only thing that gives me heartburn is the 1.3 million. I mean, that's a huge chunk of money. And I look at what we struggle, spending $500,000 on. But what comes to mind for me is I actually watched as they built the boathouse out at Lake Whatcom. And the amount of activity that was created from the increased access on Lake Whatcom from having the boat launch and the boathouse on Lake Whatcom was phenomenal. And the number of boats that you see going out of there on a daily basis today dwarfs what used to go there. So to me, it's an access to our waterfront issue, and it's also an economic development issue. When you look at what we did with the pump track, and now we're putting container cities down there for vendors, what it means is that the more people you can drive to recreation, the more economic development you're going to get, the better the community is going to be as a whole. And I think we see that over and over again. And I watched it happen on Lake Whatcom. So I'm supportive. I have to tell you that 1.3 million is a huge number. As soon as you have more than one comma in it, you start thinking about what you can do with that money in some other realms, especially in this day and age. But at this juncture, I think it's a wise expenditure. I don't think that area should be anything but what it is today. We would have to do that eventually anyway to maintain that access. So I think I see it necessary, and I think the more time we put it off, the more expensive it's going to be. Just a couple other questions. Is that parking area behind it going to be large enough to accommodate the traffic that will drive there?
Well, good question. We, fortunately, what we plan to do as part of the project is create more of a flow-through drop-off point, so you could go through, drop off your boat, and then go park. That parking lot itself, probably during the busy season, isn't big enough, but there's some surrounding parking in the close vicinity that will accommodate quite a bit of vehicle traffic.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we have a plan for the parking. I also want to make sure that we're aware of the conflict that could occur with a warehouse, especially in the summer, because there seems to be only one access point for that location. If you could go back.
Yeah, we are putting in the quiet zone and upgrading the crossing over the railroad, so it'll be.
The issue for me is you're just going to have competition between the people using the warehouse and trucks and cars. Because there's only one access point for both those locations. So I have a little bit of a concern with the potential for accidents or the potential for clog-ups or the potential for conflict. I mean, that may be my new entertainment spot, is just going down to the road and watch that. But I see that as a potential, so we should probably take a look at what it would take to mitigate that.
Commissioner, we absolutely will look at that. That problem exists today. It's been pretty well managed. When it's really bad is just on a ferry day. What if that's on a Friday or Saturday? It's now on a Wednesday, which might make things a little easier, get away from the weekend boat traffic. But this isn't going to be a new problem for us. This is going to be an existing problem that we've managed all along.
I just see it intensifying. I fully expect this, when it goes through, for your benefit, to increase the amount of traffic that goes through there, so it'll just exacerbate that problem.
Yeah, and as part of the railroad crossing upgrade, there will be a dedicated pedestrian lane across the railroad, so that will help for people that drop off their boat, go park, and then have a safe route to walk back to the launch point.
Will it be wide enough to have say a kayak on a dolly that can come through?
It should be, yeah. It'll be. I don't know the exact width, but or they'll be able to drive across, drop off their boat in a designated area, stage it there, and then go back. And but we definitely need to coordinate with the community boating center folks, and we'd anticipated doing some striping and some signing and some. There will be new fencing that goes in as part of that rail crossing improvement as well, and it is a bottleneck. So hear you loud and clear, and understand with more people, you're going to have more issues, and we'll have to think about that carefully.
Yeah, I didn't expect the response to the Blodell Donovan Boathouse that we saw, and it was a tremendous response, and I would expect the same here. The last thing is there going to be any infectious disease inspections the city currently does, say at the lake? Do we need that on this kind of a facility? It's saltwater? Thank you. All right, with that, I'm fine with hearing a motion.
I would ask Carey to read the proposed motion. So this does two things. One, this changes our budget to reflect that we will get the $500,000 grant. We didn't get the other $500,000 grant. It moves it into this year's budget to meet the match requirements through the RCO. Even though we're not going to spend it this year, we'll keep moving it to out years. And then the second part is it allows Rob to accept the grant when this will go in front of the RCO board at the end of July, and then they'll formally approve it, and then we'll be able to accept the grant. So this will just streamline the process for getting it going, and then we anticipate moving forward with the design sooner rather than later, because we know it's going to be a lengthy process, and the sooner we can get going through that process, the sooner we'll be able to build the project. So, Carey, would you?
There's two separate motions here, so we're going to read one, vote on it, and then read the other one, right?
And
Okay.
one of the things I want to make sure is that we don't take our foot off the pedal for grant money, because once we've done this and we've authorized it, there would be no incentive to go look for it. But I want to make clear that we have full expectation that more grant money would be sought and aggressively.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're actually, for the WWRP, if any projects below us that I mentioned got moved ahead of us because they had acquisition components, if for any reason they don't go, and we're pretty close to that line, we could actually move up and get that grant. So there's definitely that opportunity, as well as we'll keep looking for additional monies out there, because this is an extremely important project for a lot of different stakeholder groups, and so.
Okay. Motion to amend the 2021 capital budget to appropriate $1,891,837 for the Fairhaven Hand Launch Vessel Dock Project, allocate $500,000 from the ALEA grant, and delete the 2023 WWRP grant budget line item in the amount of $500,000 and other associated 2023 budget line items.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And you got the trifecta. Commissioner Bell is a yes.
Motion authorizing the executive director to execute a grant agreement with the Washington Recreation and Conservation Office to receive an ALEA grant to support the Fairhaven Hand Launch Vessel Dock project.
Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard,
Yes.
and again, Commissioner Bell is a yes. It's going to be a good thing.
Thank you, Commissioners, and we'll keep you updated as we move through the design and permitting process and continue to work with our project partners.
It's a great thing. Thank you. Okay, any other business that we need to discuss? Commissioner, Mr. Fix, do you have anything?
I'll let
Mr. Shepard?
Mr. Shepard bring up the other item.
We've been talking about broadband and the way we're going to structure a relationship with the PUD for a few months, well, probably longer than that. We have an idea to have a joint committee between the PUD and the Port of Bellingham so that we're able to make sure we're on the same page with what's happening, we're not tripping over each other's feet, and we're really utilizing the expertise in our staff and our budgets to its fullest capacity. I think we all want to see that this broadband happen as rapidly as we can. I know I'm impatient to see more wires getting hung on poles and getting put in trenches, and I would like us to see a committee between the two organizations be formed so we can make sure that that coordination happens effectively. And I believe Rob and their executive director have been working on such a structure.
So just by way of a little more background, Commissioners, you know that we're doing backbone throughout the county to bring broadband out to some of the rural areas. The PUD has expressed interest to help. As Commissioner Shepard said, we don't really want to step on each other's toes. We don't want to duplicate efforts or spend unnecessary money. So I think this committee will help guide that. One of the things the PUD has expressed interest in doing is providing what they call the last mile, essentially a connection to people's doors. So I think it's a good partnership in that respect. We can do the backbone that takes it out to some of these areas, and then they can connect to people's houses. But to how to make that all work seamlessly, I think we're going to need some people getting together and talking. The PUD is hiring a broadband person to lead their effort. We have Gina Stark, so we win. We've got the better person right there. And then their executive, myself, and then we'd like one elected official from each organization to sit on that committee.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah. Always when we get more government together, things seem to slow down, so I'm hoping that we can keep that from happening in this instance. I think it's, from how it's been explained to me prior to the meeting, a couple days ago, or a day ago, whatever it was, is that as Rob spoke to, they take the last mile, so to speak, to the door from the backbone. I just want to make sure that our team that's been working very hard and put a lot of hours into this, the movement that the port has going forward. We did start this project in this county, and the movement we have going forward doesn't get hamstrung by decisions from the other groups. That concerns me a little bit, but it sounds like that can be clarified, and I hope it is. I have great faith in Gina. She's proven herself over and over again, as well as Dawn has. And I don't want to see those two slowed down in any way, shape, or form. And other than that, I'm good with it, but I want to make sure that we're moving ahead at the pace we set. If folks can't keep up, they need to step it up. And that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Yeah, and I've had discussions now with both the new PUD members and came to the same conclusion that, first of all, we didn't want to be stepping on each other's toes. There was no ego involved in this. All we wanted to do was make sure the job got done. And my biggest fear was that with two agencies involved, there was going to be money spent, and that money would be spent unwisely because somebody would be just repeating the work that had already been done. And we already know that Gina's done the work of 10 people. in just this last couple of years. So I want to make sure that if we do something, I would love to see it all come under one roof. This is my I would ask. And if the PUD is going to join us, that somehow we do it all in the same place so that everybody is subject to learning the same information at the same time and the same pace, and we're not duplicating anybody's efforts. So the idea of putting a commission together to figure out how to do that, I think, is great. But as far as any employees go that are working on the first mile and the last mile type concept, which I think is brilliant, it would be that they would be housed in the same location, and that location would be here or would be wherever we decide that to be, but that employee gets the benefit of hearing all of the knowledge we've already accumulated, rather than trying to create the wheel over again. And I think that's just wise.
So Commissioner, I think you're spot on with your worry about communication and trying to make the communication between the two entities seamless. I'm going to be frank with you, we don't have the room to have them here, and I'm certainly not giving Gina up to be housed there. So that would be a huge loss to the port, and we'd lose her focus on the other things she works on. So I want to push back a little bit on that one and assure you that we will make sure the communication happens, even if they're housed in two different places. I think the last year has taught us a little bit on how to work better in these remote locations. Obviously, it's not ideal. I want everyone in the same building as well, but we are physically out of room here and taking meeting rooms to make offices out of. So I think from the logistics perspective, it'd be better for now if they stayed at the PUD, the person they hire, and we keep Gina here and we just try and make sure that we're talking to each other.
Yeah, I can understand your reluctance to turn away Gina.
Not giving her up.
I think Rob made some good points.
I do think we need to find a way to make sure that communication is seamless.
Agree.
There'll be a lot of wasted money if we don't.
No, I agree, and that's why we're establishing this committee, is really it's the first step of that communication. The communication is going to have to happen between Gina and the person on the ground, but the leadership's going to come from this committee on how to do that.
And I think we continue to be the drivers on this. I mean, this is a port-initiated project, and I think everybody who we connect with hears that from us when we go, whether it's to the Economic Development Initiative Board at the county, or when we go getting money from the state and advocating for our project. People know that this is a port project, and we're going to continue making sure that it is run under our direction and to meet our objectives. If the PUD wants to participate, I welcome them, and I think they can provide a valuable service, they can bring revenue, and they can help support our ability to acquire funds for this as well. It's a big task, and we all want to see this thing get in the ground and on the poles as soon as possible. It's nothing like a pandemic to make us know we need this broadband. So I really hope we can just ramp up the progress here and get that part of the equation that we didn't have solved, which is that last mile. And we've been so focused on the infrastructure, the big heavy lift of that infrastructure, that piece has just been something I didn't quite have fully under wraps. So I would welcome their ability to help us solve that part of the equation.
And quite frankly, it's the most expensive piece, the last mile. So having their ability to get money for that and assist us in that is a big deal.
Yeah.
Mr. Briscoe, you have anything else?
I think it's been pretty well chewed over. Other than the fact, I think Rob made some very good points there, and I want to respect what he said. It's Rob's staff and his boat to steer, and we give advice. But I think he made very good points here about keeping people in house. I think that's something to listen to when your director says that. So thanks on that, Rob. And other than that, I have nothing.
So do we need a motion?
So, yeah, the next thing is to decide who wants to be on it. And I'm assuming you want to volunteer?
I'd be happy to do that.
I think that's a logical choice and a wise choice. So the motion should include appointing you to that.
So Commissioners, a motion to establish a broadband committee with the Whatcom PUD with Michael Shepard serving as the elected official.
I'll make that motion.
There you go. I'll second it.
Commissioner Shepard, your vote.
I'll vote for it.
Commissioner Briscoe, your vote.
Yes.
Bell is also a yes.
So Commissioners, now that you voted on that, I do want to throw out a precaution that fiber is turned out to be something really hard to get. It turns out that every community in America has decided they need to increase their fiber access to rural areas, and so now there's a backlog of fiber, and we're months out. But we're on it.
Apparently they're shipping it with plywood and everything else.
Yeah, it's right there with a sheet of OSB.
The supply chains are
Got some
breaking.
2x4s, I'll trade for it. Well noted. Thank you.
For other business, my only other one, which we kind of touched on, is the bathrooms for the community voting center. So I just wanted to get an update on that. I heard they were under design, and there were some drawings that were coming through.
Yeah, so we're pretty much set on a trailer solution, and we're looking at one with a shower in it. It'd be something that has to be maintained. It's not a flush that goes into the city sewer. It's going to go into a holding tank, and you're going to need potable water in that. But we've got a couple different designs we're working through. I think we're going to end up with 2 trailers. One is for the CBC that has the shower unit, and then a second one that has some just strictly bathroom stalls for different areas of the port. We'd pull it over for Sea Feast. We'd pull it out for 4th of July. We'd probably store it over, during the summer months over by the pump track. But we'll be bringing those forward to you here really shortly as we get a little farther down the design. Right now, the engineers are kicking things around.
I assume that would have warm water for the shower.
Correct.
It's an important one for this. Part of the need was hypothermia emergency situations for that shower facility. So,
well, and right now we have a dangerous situation with smaller kids crossing the railroad tracks to use the bathroom, and we want to get away from that. We want to be able to, stay within the confines of the community voting center to use the restroom. That just seems to make sense.
okay, good. And then my last one, I know we have an RFP coming for removal of the Blight Island in Blaine, and I had seen that there was a very tight turnaround for the ability for that contractor to respond. Did you have a chance to look into that, Rob?
I completely forgot about it till you just brought it up, and I'm hoping Tiffany or Andy is on here. I see Tiffany now, so she can comment on that.
Yep, I'm on here. Thanks, Commissioner. Tiffany DeSimone, Manager of Marinas. This is the second time we've gone out, and so we felt like we had a good new package to go out, and this would be plenty of time for the turnaround. So it closes on Monday.
And the 24-hour turnaround to be able to get it out is sufficient? That's something that's doable?
We sure hope so. That's the idea.
You said it closed on Monday. Did we have a lot of bidders?
It closes on Monday.
Oh, it closes next Monday. Okay.
Yep. I'll definitely report back when I know.
Okay. All right, thanks. That's it for me.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Oh, you go first.
No, that's not how that works.
Okay, I got a couple.
You told me one of the advantages to sitting in this chair was that you got to go last.
I didn't say that, did I?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a disadvantage sometimes too, because everybody says everything you already said.
Do you need a minute to think? Because I could, certainly
I'm good.
occupy the time.
No, where are we at with the train crossings, Rob? Can you tell us on that, the south side train crossings? I haven't heard anything about that lately.
Yeah, so the final train crossing that we have to do is the one by the community voting center. We call it the ferry crossing. But that one it's been designed and it's in approval with BNSF. I believe their engineers have pretty much signed off on it. And we're just waiting on that final approval from BNSF, and then we'll be able to start construction.
Okay. And it appears that the Fisherman's Pavilion is moving right along.
Yeah, Commissioner, it is. It's going up. There's concerns this morning about water. I think there was some storm drains that haven't been hooked up yet, so that's why we had the backup there on the foundation. But when they get those hooked up, the drains will be in the middle of the foundation, and everything will drain down to that area. But pretty exciting to see. If you make it down by Squalicum Harbor, near Zwange Park there, you'll see the pad is poured and some of the metal is coming out of the ground, and the prefabricated building should be showing up any day now.
One other thing I got is at some point in time, we need to talk, excuse me, about the GP wharf and what we're going to do with it. you know, it's used for intermittent moorage, and we can't keep letting things go over there. Things are really going to start falling apart. So I, at some point, like to have some discussions with my fellow commissioners on what we're going to do with that GP dock and where we're headed with it. It's been kind of sidetracked for a couple of years. You know, I know we've got monetary constraints and so on and so forth, but the longer you let things fall apart, winter after winter of you know, being used and band-aided together with chains and cables and so on and so forth, it's getting kind of rough. So at some point, we're going to have to talk about that. So I just like to get that on everybody's radar, that we do need to figure out what we're going to do there.
Commissioner,
And,
I know
maybe-
I know the waterfront team has been working on that, so we'll get something scheduled in the near future and on the agenda that present to the three of you and that you can discuss.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
there's
very
enough
good,
meat
thank you.
there that we could probably address that at a separate line item down the road, isn't?
Yep.
Okay. And I think that's all I've got, Commissioner Bell, unless I remember something while you're talking.
Yeah, just raise your hand if you got another one. Yeah, so mine is just a quick one, and I think Commissioner Shepard's already heard me pontificate on this one a little bit, but one of the concerns I have about economic development in the county is the availability of affordable housing. And I'm just concerned that we're not making any strides in moving on urban growth areas and some of those places where we could kind of have a relief valve. And I'm wondering how, as a commission, we could do this, and maybe it's not our place, but I just wanted to have that discussion with you because I see Southwest Airlines coming in here. I see a big bus manufacturing coming in here. I see a lot of employees coming down into the U.S., and if we don't do something to address the housing, we're going to lose a lot of the momentum that we've built over the last few years. And I don't know if you can feel the momentum, but it's palpable to me. It's almost like every couple of weeks we have a new announcement for what's going to happen. You know, we're building a container city on the waterfront that is going to take off. It's going to drive people into the city. This is going to be one of the most amazing places to live, but they have to have a place to live. And right now the affordability index is off the chart. And it's got me concerned enough, and we had a meeting with the city and the county people, and quite frankly, I'm not sure I even understood that the city planning director was speaking English at the time he was trying to explain to me why the city isn't incorporating urban growth areas. But it is a concern for us from an economic development standpoint. At some point, it's gonna hinder Don from doing his job of helping people come into the community and create the kind of work that we've already done. And I'm just wondering if there's not an opportunity for us to join with the county in some kind of an effort to try to figure out exactly what the barrier is. You know, we've never heard a specific answer on what are the problems and how much are they. And if it's a matter of, you know, hiring fire for a certain area, how much is that? So that we can go about creating the fix. And right now we just keep hearing that there is a problem. But I would like to have, you know, maybe us as commissioners sign a letter to the county and maybe get the county to be a joint signatory on that to say we've got to do something to move this forward so that we can create some housing. And at this juncture, the zoning can be what the city decides it is, but we need to do something. And doing nothing is not an option. And I just fear it's gonna hinder us as we move forward. And I really do want to bring the average price of a home down in Bellingham with some more inventory. So if you're up for that, I'd like to have a discussion. You know, maybe, I don't know, Don, if you're on, maybe you and I can have a discussion about how we do that with the county to write to the city or get whatever signatories we have on this to help us with it. I think the biggest concern for me is that the urban growth areas were designed to stop sprawl. And what's happened is that they've done nothing but exacerbate sprawl. What you're doing is you're just seeing sprawl in Linden and in Ferndale and in Blaine and in areas around us, and the sprawl is exponentially more than it would be if we have exercised rational urban growth area boundaries and exercised those options. So if the whole idea is to not have, you know, urban sprawl, we're doing just the opposite of that. So it's really crazy in my mind to keep doing this for the prevention of sprawl, when in fact we're actually creating more sprawl in those areas that can actually build it. And we're also creating an environment where homes are being built in areas where they've got to commute into Bellingham, and they don't have the same transportation opportunities that we do here. So it's actually a step backwards to maintain the position that the city has maintained in not opening up urban growth areas and not exploring new ones. So at some juncture, we've got to weigh in because it's going to hurt us. And I don't want to see an electric bus company or its next compatriot come into this area and say, I can't afford to bring my people in. I've got a group of people that need to come in and help us work on this, but they can't live here because they can't afford it. That would be a tragedy to me. So Don, I'm just kind of asking you if you think it's a wise decision. I tend to think out loud, so you're the beneficiary of that, to maybe have us put a letter together in conjunction with a couple of other municipalities to ask specifically what is holding up the expansion in those growth areas and what are those costs, so that we know exactly what we're looking at, because I believe if it's just a money issue, we can go find it. That's just Ken.
Thanks, Commissioner Bell. Don Goldberg, Director of Economic Development. When I started this role about almost 4 years ago, I knew housing would be part of my role, but I didn't know it would encompass half of my job right now. And I do agree, there are two issues that are interrelated to our growth, and that's housing and childcare. Both of them limit our existing companies from growing, which is my most important job. And then, of course, bringing new companies into the region. And it's gotten to the point where low-paying potential jobs, I don't support them coming here, because we know that $15 an hour jobs we just can't house. So I do support you in the sense that we have to take every measure possible. I am working on a lot of things, and of course there is the Whatcom Housing Alliance, which is a very vast group of individuals that have a lot of knowledge, which Gina's on that as well. And as you mentioned, we had Bellingham's Director of Planning, Rick Sepler, at our Business and Commerce meeting, as well as Mark Pesonius, the Director for the county. I'm working with multiple cities right now on seeing if we can create worker housing on site for factories. Some states and cities are doing that right now. We are not alone. This problem is rampant throughout the West and even throughout the country right now. Our country's gotten very flat-footed on housing. Rick Sepler will be retiring the end of June, and so when it comes to Bellingham, we will not have a planning director, I'm guessing, for a little while. So I would love to work with you and the commissioners and Rob on how the port can support getting more housing, because you're 100% correct. It is holding us back from bringing companies into the region.
Well, the real issue for me
Can I
was...
ask a question on that one?
Sure.
Just a quick, so I get a little confused with, we've got to build more houses to bring more workers in. But what I don't ever hear, Don, is we need to teach our folks and train them better that are already here, our families that have children that are graduating, our families that have people here. Why don't we have a program so that the people already live here can work in these things, instead of us talking about bringing more people into the county by having more houses for them, which then I would have to ask, how are we doing on our resources, our water, our power, that stuff? We can't just keep going like this. Is there another side to this that we're not looking at, Don, about making sure that the folks in Whatcom County that reside here, have grown up here and live here, why can't those people take care of the businesses' needs that are coming in? Am I missing something here?
Well, no, Commissioner. The reality is we have an enormous demand for workers right now, and so any local people who want a job can find one. So right now we have oversupply of jobs and an undersupply of workers. And even our local people, not everybody's going to be able to stay with mom and dad forever. So they are going to need a place to live as well as they mature and raise their own family. So when we talk about additional workers, we're not really focusing on people only moving here. But the numbers are, we can't slow down the people who want to move to this region. And so we have both to deal with. We have new people moving here, and then we have the existing people who want to stay here, who need housing as well.
And I think Commissioner Briscoe, oh, go ahead.
Was this, let's back up pre-pandemic, same situation, do you think, Don? As far as companies looking for folks?
The situation has gotten more severe after COVID. The workforce has not come back. The research, I know a lot of people believe that it's due to unemployment benefits, but that's actually a very small number. By far, the two groups of people that have not come back to employment are women with children who are taking care of their children at home because of lack of childcare, and then women and men who are uncomfortable with coming back to work quite yet. So those are the two biggest groups that have taken a situation and made it much worse after COVID. But the housing crisis was here prior to it, and I was working on it prior to COVID.
Okay, thank you, Don.
I just wanted to chime in. I think Commissioner Briscoe hits on some of the complexity of the housing issue. You know, we have to build more housing, and we have to build more housing that is affordable for people for not just today, but affordable for a long period of time. And we can't do it by sacrificing critical things for our community like our farmland. We still have to be able to feed ourselves. We still have to have farms where people can grow things so we're able to have local food security. And so we've got to make sure that when we are building that housing, we are being smart about it. And a lot of that, I think, comes back to density. I don't think we can build single-family homes to solve the housing crisis. I think we've got to be able to have a diverse approach. There are some areas where single-family homes are going to be appropriate and are going to be useful as one of the tools in our toolbox. But in a lot of places, it's going to have to be a density factor, or we're going to run out of some of those other finite resources that are really important to us. So I thought the discussion was really useful on Monday at that meeting. I think that's a useful discussion to have in public. And if we wanted to have a conversation like that where some of those individuals from the county, from the Whatcom Housing Alliance, were able to present to us, I don't know if that's in a commission meeting or a special session, but it's a good conversation. It's an important conversation, one that we should be weighing in on.
Yeah, I'm not as, I mean, I know the problem, so I'm not as interested in hearing that. I want to start to fix some things. And, you know, quite frankly, we did a comprehensive plan that was to project where growth would go and where urban growth areas were going to be needed in case of an emergency. And I've heard everybody say this is a crisis, this is a need. We put a comprehensive plan in place 20 years ago that said that when that happens, here's where you're going to go. And oh, by the way, you planned it that way so that it is exactly where you want it. It's not on farmland, it's on the outskirts of the city. So why not do it where you said you were going to do it? And what is the holdup? And if it is a money issue, let's find out what the resources are that are going to take to get it there. I don't, quite frankly, density's, I don't want to weigh in on that. I think that's a city issue, figuring out what kinds of houses to put where. It is where are we going to put them? And we're rapidly running out of places within the city, and they're finding places in Linden, Ferndale, and elsewhere when we've got lands where we could put high-density housing right on the outskirts with easy access, and they planned for it years ago in our comprehensive plan. So what good is a comprehensive plan? This is part that I don't get. What good is a comprehensive plan if you plan for this and then you don't pull the trigger when you need it? And quite frankly, we keep hearing excuses as to why those triggers aren't being pulled, and I just want to know what those excuses are. If they're valid and those urban growth areas don't work, I want to say, okay, then take it off the map. Let's find something new. But we can't get an answer to just what exactly do you need? Do you need fire? If you need to fund a fire department, let's go find the resources to do the fire department. Do you need some infrastructure cost? Let's go find the resources to put the infrastructure cost in. But don't let excuses pile up and do nothing while the crisis continues. I really do think we've got to weigh in on that, because I think it's going to hurt us long term. And I don't know what mechanism to use. And Don, I'm just bringing you in because I know I can cry on your shoulder. And if you think a letter from the commission and in conjunction with the county council members to somebody would help with that, I would love to be a part of it. And I'm just making that request of you. Just let me know if you think that's wise. If it's not wise, I'll back off, but at this juncture, I don't want to lose a company because we can't get employees in here.
One other part, and then I'll answer your question, Commissioner, is that we keep on mentioning the rising costs to live in this area and the housing costs, and some of that is not going to change. You know, we can lower our costs, we can argue about fees, but we are not going back to 15 years ago, the cost of housing here. And so the other side of the equation is we need to raise incomes in our region to accommodate the cost of living here. And so part of our job is to start to bring companies in who pay better. Now, that doesn't do anything for those people who are service providers and everybody who are in our restaurants and things of that nature, but clearly it can't be all done by one side on saving on the cost of housing.
So basically what you're telling me, though, is that you don't have the appetite to do something on the urban growth areas. I talk to them all the time about the UGA, and that's how that meeting came up, was your comment. And so it's not an appetite. What we need is to give them some solutions. So as you mentioned, if it's coming up with funding, then where is that funding? So I'd rather be solution driven than just and that's the whole point, Don. I think the problem is no one can articulate what the holdup is. So if somebody could put on paper, we can't do this area for this reason, then we can fix the reason. And so, but until we know what the problem is in each one of those areas, we can't come to the table with a solution. And I got to believe that that even the developers would want to help weigh in on this and even contribute to this to fix some of these issues, because they're being held up at some juncture. I don't know what that answer is, but I don't even know what the problem is, because no one can give me specifics. They can just talk around it.
And we're mostly focusing on Bellingham. I have to say that probably 5 or 6 of our cities in our county have the same problem as Bellingham. They're all getting too expensive and running out of housing supplies. So even though Bellingham is the focus, this is a problem throughout our county. And I know all the cities would like to figure out an answer. So I do this a lot. I would love for some suggestions, and yes, I can connect us to the county. And I believe Sat Paul would love to find out how we can help as well.
So Commissioners, first of all, I think the problem's way bigger than just Whatcom County. This is a statewide problem with urban growth areas. It's being talked about in governments, not just ports, but governments all throughout the state. But I'm going to suggest we put this on a work session and agenda item, and we bring in the pertinent folks and do a little presentation and get the questions answered.
I'm fine with that. Don, do you think there is a role for us as a agency to bring some of our skills to the table? You know, we are good at acquiring properties. We are good at putting in infrastructure to make properties developable. We are we don't build houses, we don't build condo units necessarily, and we don't want to manage them necessarily, but we can do some of those other pieces. Do you think there is a role for us to look at using some of those skills to get more properties through the pipeline faster?
I really don't, Commissioner. Part of the problem in Bellingham in particular is that a lot of the land that's zoned for residential is owned by a few families, and it's privately owned, and nobody can get them to develop their land at a faster pace. So I don't think the problem has to do with the city or the county being able to develop the property as much as getting private ownership to develop.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need a whole work session on this, but
An agenda item anyway, where we can hear from some folks.
okay, I'd love to hear. And we're going to have a new planning director, so maybe we wait until we get the new director on. All right, thanks for indulging me.
I would, let's see, is this on? Yeah. One of those folks that needs, if we're gonna have a work session, I'd like to hear about our water situation. You know, we'll build. What are we gonna do for water?
That's
one of the big.
an 8-hour conversation. This meeting just got really long.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, you know, you can't leave that component out. There's already water issues in the county for building to start with. We have the Lummi Nation, we have the Nooksack Nation, you have the Samish Nation. I mean, there's water issues that need to be discussed. Everybody wants to build, but you're gonna have to have something come out of the faucet. I'm not sure where it's gonna come from. So I'd like to have one of those people in to answer some of those questions before we get too worried about build.
Yeah, and a lot of that water stuff is being worked on right now as we speak. So hopefully we'll start to see some fruits of that labor.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, that's the only thing I had for other business. Commissioner Briscoe, did you want to go back?
That was it.
Did you want to go back? Commissioner Briscoe, did you have something else?
I did. I'm always probably the first one to poke at the city that they need to get off the pot and get moving on stuff and what have you. And I'd just like to say publicly thank you to Mayor Fleetwood and some of his staff for working with Director Fix as well as our folks here at the port to move some things along that really needed to be done. And I won't mention it project by project, but thank you to the city. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Shepard?
That's it for me.
I'm done. Motion to adjourn?
Accepted.
We're adjourned.